So I just got back from seeing the new Power Rangers movie, and I have a lot of thoughts on it. So I'm going to talk about what I liked about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie, and where the series can go from here, as far as a movie franchise goes. So the first thing that I really liked about this movie was Rita Repulsa, and this is truly a name that that she earns, that Elizabeth Banks earns as Rita Repulsa. When you first see her emerge, she is repulsive. She's hideous. She's actually kind of scary looking. Um, and it was really cool to see them really, really up the character in that way. And as the movie goes on, she changes her look so that she looks more like what we see in the trailer. But even then, Elizabeth Banks just does such a phenomenal job of making Rita Repulsa truly this evil, vile character to be taken seriously. I mean, let's face it, the original series, Rita Repulsa was a joke, objectively speaking. I know it was a kid's series, but, still, for what it was worth, her character was a joke in the original series. I'm sorry. But in this one, she is absolutely phenomenal. She is not someone to be trifled with. Elizabeth Banks truly did a phenomenal job. And the other actors in this movie were really good as well. Bryan Cranston, he did a very solid job as Zordon. I don't know any of the other cast members' names, but the acting from the other Rangers, there was definitely a lot of chemistry between the team, and that's another thing that I really liked about this movie. If it's no secret that in this movie the Power Rangers are not a bunch of goody two shoes like they were in the original series. They're misfits, criminals, what have you. And they end up meeting each other by chance. And the team dynamic takes time to form. And there's definitely a lot of chemistry though. There's not a whole lot of chemistry at first, which is as it should be. But as time goes on, the movie does a really good job of building up that chemistry with the team. Right. If you're familiar with Power Rangers, you know it's very formulaic. And if you've ever seen the first episode of any of the series, you know that basically they morph. They're like, "Hey, I know how to do this now," and then they go and they fight in their robots, their Zords, and they just magically know how to do everything. And this movie, that's not the case. Spoiler alert, by the way, this will contain some spoilers. I'll try to keep them as small as possible, but this will contain some spoilers. But when the Megazord first forms in battle, they actually trip the Megazord as they're trying to control it. And so it was really neat to see them come in and really just be learning this in the heat of the battle, learning how to use their weapons, learning how to use their Zords, and not just magically know how to do everything. I thought it was really, really neat that the movie did this. And another aspect that I thought was really neat with their training was that they don't just press a button or say something and morph. No, it actually takes effort on their part. They have to learn how to morph. And so I think that this was a really cool aspect. This also jives into the whole growing as a team aspect. And by the time that they finally become one team, at that point, they're all able to morph. And so I thought that it was really cool to see those two things parallel each other, their growth as a team and their ability to finally morph. It was really cool to see them morph. I'm sorry, to see their ability to morph blossom forth just as their team dynamic also blossomed forth. So I thought that was really, really cool. It was really neat to see that. One of the things that I didn't like about this movie, I wasn't a big fan of the soundtrack. I wasn't a big fan of the music. It really just wasn't. There were times where the music was just too low. It wasn't loud enough, which is weird because a lot of times it's the exact opposite. I just wasn't a fan of the soundtrack in general. I didn't think that the music was composed very well. There were a couple of instances where they did the original theme. Go Go Power Rangers, Go Go Power Rangers. There were a couple of times. Actually, I think it was only once where they did that. I would have liked to see that somewhere. That was kind of cool to have that in there. But there was never a time where they're heading into battle and the music is just real cool. It's epic, and you want to stand up and shout, "Yeah!" And a lot of times, I'm sad that it's not there, but it doesn't take anything away from the movie. In this case, for some reason, I can't explain why, but for some reason, this took away from the movie that the absence of that awesome music that would have gone in really well somehow just detracted from the movie. Another thing that I liked, going back to things that I like, was well, this isn't so much a praise as it is a good. You did a good job. It's the CGI was not that bad. It was actually pretty good most of the time. Most of the time, I was able to believe that the Zords were there. There were a couple of times where I was like, "Oh, that's crap. There's nothing there." But 99% of the time, the CGI was actually really good. So overall, the CGI was definitely solid. There was one other thing that I didn't like. Oh, yeah, the big thing that I didn't like, and this isn't so much, to be fair, this is not, my arm's getting tired, I'm going to adjust my camera. The other thing that I didn't like, and this is not so much a fault of the movie itself, but if you're familiar with Power Rangers, you know that the good guys don't die. Right? The good guys just don't die. The two exceptions being Zordon and Power Rangers in Space, where Andros kills him to save the galaxy and he turns all the bad people to dust. And then there's Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, where one of the Power Rangers, I think her name is Kendrix. Kendrix gets killed battling one of the evil Power Rangers. And that was only because the actress who plays her came down with leukemia, but she even comes back at the end of that season. So the good guys don't die. And because of that, because we know that the good guys in Power Rangers don't die, it's very hard to feel in this movie like they're ever in any sort of real danger. Or like, it's hard to feel any sort of suspense or any sort of sense of peril because we know, a spoiler alert, we know that they're not going to die. They're going to come out of this all right. And so this is something that was missing from the movie, but at the same time, that's how Power Rangers is. So it's not so much the movie's fault as it is just how Power Rangers is. That was probably my biggest issue with the movie, though, was the absence of that peril. Where does the series go from here? Now, this section will contain one or two major spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you don't want spoilers, go away, leave me alone. Because you're about to hear some spoilers otherwise. But Saban has already said that they want to make up to 7 sequels. So if that's true, I can definitely see a storyline path. I saw this movie with a friend of mine, and what I was telling him when the credits rolled was I'd really like to see the next movie be about the Green Ranger saga. If you remember from the original series, one of the most memorable parts of Power Rangers is the evil Green Ranger saga from Mighty Morphin. And right after I mentioned this to my friend, as the credits were rolling, this mid-credit scene comes on, and we hear a guy talking about someone named Tommy Oliver, which, if you remember, he was the Green Ranger. And then we cut to a green jacket. So I think my prediction for the next movie was pretty spot on. I think that the next movie will feature the Green Ranger. And then I'd like for the next movie I'd like to see Lord Zed come in the third movie, and then that sort of transition into the pathway for Power Rangers Zeo, and sort of be a cliffhanger where the Machine Empire starts coming back to destroy everyone. The next movie, if you want, have a Turbo movie in there, but I don't see there being any loss if there isn't a Turbo movie. The Turbo series sucked. If you don't remember it, that's the one with the kid. It was not a good series. I would not be upset at all if they didn't do a Turbo movie. In fact, several years ago, back in like 1995, I think, there was a Turbo movie and it was terrible. It did terribly, and it's a terrible movie. It's probably on YouTube somewhere if you want to look it up on YouTube. But what I'd really like to see is the last 3 movies be a Power Rangers in Space trilogy. If you remember, Power Rangers in Space brought on the Psycho Rangers, and they also brought on the massive invasion by the United Alliance of Evil, which is basically, think if the Power Rangers were the Avengers, but evil Avengers. All right, so you have a group of supervillains instead of superheroes teaming up and invading Earth. That was basically what happened in Power Rangers in Space at the very end, the last couple of episodes, Countdown to Destruction, parts 1 and 2. And that's what I'd really like to see. I'd really like to see the seventh or 8th movie, the last movie in this movie franchise that they're making be about this massive invasion. I think that would be really cool to see. But I also think it would be really neat to see a movie about the Psycho Ranger saga. And if you don't remember the Psycho Rangers from Power Rangers in Space, go YouTube it. There's tons of stuff about it on YouTube. It's almost as critically acclaimed as the Green Ranger saga as it should be. Right. So that's just sort of my thoughts on where the series goes. I think ending with the movie equivalent of Countdown to Destruction at the end of Power Rangers in Space. If you remember, that's where Andros kills Zordon so that Zordon can turn everyone into space dust. I think ending this movie series on that note would be a really solid ending, assuming they can pull it off, which I think based on this movie was surprisingly well done. And it was surprisingly. I was very surprised at how well done this movie was. I think these filmmakers have proved that they can pull it off. I don't think this movie is going to win any Academy Awards. I don't think it's the greatest movie ever made. But as far as Power Rangers go, this is really really well done. This is a very solid movie. Even not just for Power Rangers, just in general. At the most, it's a very solid superhero movie. Now, parents, I do need to caution you. This movie does earn its PG-13 rating, so just bear that in mind if you're planning on taking your 5-year-old. There are a couple of things that you might not want them to see in this movie. Also, as I mentioned earlier, Readout looks very, very scary. So that might upset some younger viewers. But overall, it's a very solid movie, and if you're at all interested in seeing it, if you have even the slightest interest, I definitely recommend go out, go see it, go check it out. I really think you'll have a good time. So I'm hoping to do more of these reviews. Leave a comment if you liked it. If you didn't like it, leave a comment. Tell me what I should do more of or do better. And peace.